Mary Mac's Tea Room and the Varsity are two of the most notable restaurants in Atlanta. They've attracted locals and tourists alike for decades. However, I was curious if those restaurants could still hold their own today, which was what I wanted to find out. While I really enjoyed one of those establishments, the other I unfortunately wasn't much of a fan of. It's a beautiful day today here in New York City. Right now I'm at Stuyvesant Park, but I'm not here to talk about NYC. I'm actually here to talk about a couple of restaurants I went to in Atlanta. You see, this past summer I had some extra time on my hands in July, and I wanted to take advantage of it by going on a bit of a trip. You see, I didn't want to go too far or spend too much, so I thought of Atlanta. It's a very notable city. I haven't been there. They have the Michelin Guide, and there are plenty of things to see there. I saw pretty much all the sites that tourists go to see, like the aquarium, the world of Coca-Cola, the zoo, and I really enjoyed myself. But as there are a number of museums and attractions that pretty much every tourist goes to see, there are also restaurants in that same vein. However, sometimes those restaurants end up being tourist traps. So I went to two spots in Atlanta that would definitely be considered touristy. One of them I really enjoyed, and the other I hated. The first place I went to may just be the most iconic restaurant in all of Atlanta, Mary Mac's Tea Room. The place has a lot of history, and it seems like everyone who goes to Atlanta, at least at some point, tries Mary Mac's. With that being said, this was my experience at Mary Mac's Tea Room. The day I went to Mary Mac's Tea Room was on the day I arrived in Atlanta. In fact, it was one of the first things I did in the city. After landing at the airport, I took the train to my hotel where I dropped off my bag and then headed to the Midtown area of Atlanta to dine at Mary Mac's Tea Room. Mary Mac's was established in 1945 by Mary Mackenzie. In the aftermath of the war, times were tough, but a number of enterprising women began to establish restaurants all over Atlanta to help make a living. To add a sense of refinement, proprietors utilized the name Tea Room. At one point, there were 16 tea rooms in Atlanta, but today Mary Mac's is the only one that remains. I was no doubt excited and arrived to the restaurant right as it opened for lunch, but they weren't quite ready yet. However, I was offered a glass of sweet tea while I waited in the lobby area, which I thought was a very hospitable touch. I only waited a mere minute and was soon seated. Mary Mac's is a fairly large establishment with multiple rooms. On the walls were pictures of the various guests who have dined at Mary Mac's, which have included the Dalai Lama to multiple US presidents. One odd quirk of the restaurant is that it's situated on a hill, but rather than having a leveled out floor, the dining room takes an awkward slant, but I didn't think that it was a big deal. Once I settled in, I began to look over the menu. Mary Mac's serves classic Southern comfort food from fried chicken to pot roast, along with a sizable selection of sides. Everything sounded good to me, but the unique thing was I had to fill out a form to hand to my server, which detailed my order. In terms of beverages, Mary Mac's offers cocktails, and the Augusta lemonade sounded good to me. The drink was simple. It contained Fruitland Augusta Georgia peach tea vodka and lemonade. It was a pleasant cocktail. Now it came close to being a touch too sweet, but as it was, it hit the spot. Plus, knowing that I was on vacation made it taste even more satisfying. I then turned my attention to the bread basket, which contained two types. I tried the cornbread first, and it was nice. It seemed fresh and had a good flavor, but I didn't want to fill up on bread because a decent amount of food was coming my way. First up was actually a special dish that I received since it was my first time at Mary Mac's, which was pot liquor. Pot liquor is the broth left over from cooking greens like collard greens. I thought that handing out that dish to first-timers at the restaurant was a nice mark of hospitality. Plus, it was delicious as the broth was filled with flavor. Soon enough, I received my main course, which came out very fast. In fact, I received it just mere minutes after ordering. I went with the 4-piece fried chicken, which included a breast, wing, leg, and thigh, along with 2 sides of my choice. It looked like a hearty plate of food, and I was eager to dig in. I started off with the fried chicken, and it was a delight. It was super crispy, nice and hot, and had good flavor. fried chicken is one of the loves of my life, and that was some satisfying meat. Although, if I'm being critical, I feel like a more punchy seasoning added to the bird would take it to another level, but I still enjoyed that chicken. I was also fond of my two sides. I first tried the mac and cheese, which was pure comfort food. It was held together by thick gobs of cheese, and it was just flat out a joy to eat. My other side was a dish that I've never had before, which was why I felt compelled to order it. It's called Hoppin' John, and it consists of black-eyed peas and rice. Typically, a pork product is included in the mix as well, like mine was. I was very eager to give it a go, and I wasn't disappointed. The rice and black-eyed peas were nicely cooked, but I absolutely loved the saltiness and savoriness that the ham provided. The Hoppin' John was a joy to have. In fact, I enjoyed everything on my table. I pretty much had a small southern feast before me, and I couldn't have been happier. I was eating and traveling, my two favorite things. Overall, Mary Mac's has good food, warm hospitality, and a friendly atmosphere. That was indeed a nice lunch, but it wasn't over yet. After finishing, I of course saved room for dessert. Mary Mac's serves a decent selection of southern treats, but since I was in Georgia, the peach state, I had to go with the peach cobbler. Just like everything I ordered that day, it came out quickly and it had a nice rustic look to it. The cobbler was delightful. It was nice and warm and pleasantly balanced in terms of its sweetness. I also loved the flaky and buttery top of the dish, which was texturally on the mark. While I did enjoy that dish, I regret not ordering it a la mode. What the hell was I thinking? Everything is better with ice cream. Regardless, that was still a nice treat, and I had an overall delightful meal and experience at Mary Mac's Tea Room. After finishing, I was presented with the bill, which totaled to $40.10, but with my tip, I spent a bit over $47. It was certainly nice to get a break from those New York City prices. So that was really nice. I really enjoyed that. The place had good food, good hospitality, had the history, all around. It ticked all the boxes for me. Plus, that was such a nice thing to do for what was basically my first experience in Atlanta. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if there are other restaurants in this city which serve similar food at a better quality. However, there is only one Mary Mac's, and they do serve good food, and they've got the history and provide an all-around pleasant experience. In summation, I really enjoyed Mary Mac's Tea Room, and it's definitely a place that I would like to go back to one day. But the other touristy spot I went to is definitely a place that I sure as hell won't be going back to. I am talking about the Varsity. It's sort of a long-standing local drive-in chain that serves pretty much all the American classic fast food items. Now, even before I went, I heard it wasn't the best, but there was a location right next to my hotel and I knew it was cheap, and I thought, how bad can it actually be? It turns out it could be very bad, and with that being said, this was my experience at the Varsity. The Varsity Outpost in Atlanta is the main branch of the small local chain that has about 8 locations in total within the greater Atlanta area. The restaurant was established in 1928 and sought to cater mainly to nearby college students, hence the name The Varsity. One unique aspect about the Atlanta location was that it was once the largest drive-in restaurant in the world. Sadly, drive-through and curb service is no longer an option at the Varsity, which is a real shame in my opinion, since it's one of the restaurant's main claims to fame. Well, it's not like I came to Atlanta with a car anyway, so I made my way inside. Right off the bat, it was clear that the Varsity is rooted in nostalgia and the preservation of history. Even though there was a lot that I disliked about the restaurant, I loved the vibes. It was classic Americana. I got in one of the lines to order and began to look over the menu. The Varsity serves your classic American fast food staples like burgers and hot dogs at very affordable prices. They even offer fried pies, which I was looking forward to trying since I got to experience the magic of fried hand pies back in Japan at McDonald's. Unfortunately, I completely forgot to order one when I actually made it to the register, which surprisingly took a lot longer than I thought it would. Eventually, I got my food and found a seat. I didn't order a lot since I was planning to have a large dinner that day, and in hindsight, I'm even more glad that I didn't buy a lot of food now that I know how it tasted. The onion rings definitely looked good, but the burger was sort of pathetic looking. This burger is pretty sad looking. Especially considering what I had last night, this is very unfortunate. But let's see how it tastes. Yeah, that's not good. This is not a good burger at all. I'm not gonna mince words, that burger was terrible. Out of 10, I would give it a 2.5 because it was at least edible. The funny thing is, I ordered what the restaurant called the glorified bacon cheeseburger. Just looking at the burger, that label is comical to me. You know, I know it's just a fast food burger, but for a fast food burger, it's pretty sad. There are so many other better fast food burgers out there. Next, I turned my attention to the beverage. So for my drink, I got the Varsity Orange. This is their own soda. Well, at least that's pretty good. Helps wash the bad burger taste out of my mouth. And it's not too sweet, which I appreciate. But it's also a little flat. While I thought that the flavor of the Varsity Orange was alright, I started to ponder if it was actually soda or not because it was so flat. The drink is interesting. It has good flavor, but it also feels kind of like a flat soda. I really feel like it should be carbonated, but it's not bad. Google AI says it's a carbonated beverage, and if it's truly the case, I would have liked a lot more carbonation. Anyway, it was time to give the onion rings a try, which actually looked promising. Now the onion rings at least look pretty good. They're actually pretty good. Unfortunately, the quality of the onion rings decreased as I got further into the bag, as I found them to be overly greasy and lacking seasoning. I am finished. My goodness, that burger was an absolute chore to eat. That had to have been one of the worst burgers I've ever had in a restaurant. It was terrible. I think I should have gotten a hot dog. To sum it up, the Varsity is a pure tourist trap in my opinion, which is a shame because I love the history, vibes, and look of the place. I really hope that the establishment can improve in the future because there are certainly things to love about the Varsity, but it's just not the food. So that wasn't very good, but on the plus side, I didn't spend a lot of money. Now to be fair, there were plenty of other items on the menu that I simply didn't get to try, and perhaps those were much better than what I had. But what I had was literally the worst burger that I've ever had in a restaurant. That was awful. And I really wanted to like that place too. I love their history, and it just looks so cool looking. Now, luckily restaurants aren't static, and maybe they can improve things in the future, but as it stands now, I cannot recommend the Varsity. Fortunately for me, I did have some good barbecue later in the day, so it wasn't a complete culinary disaster. Plus, I also went to some other restaurants in Atlanta that wouldn't necessarily be considered touristy, but were great spots nevertheless, and I'll certainly be sharing my experiences at them in future videos. To sum it up, Atlanta is a great city, and I had some good meals there, except at the Varsity. That was terrible.